Struggling to figure out your book's genre? Keep watching, because by the end of this video, you're going to figure it out. Many authors are confused sorting out the different genres, categories, and labels that can describe a book. And oftentimes will mark their book as the wrong genre, especially if it involves elements from multiple different genres. This can become a problem when you plan to publish because you want to make sure that you are properly categorizing the book so as to set readers or literary agents' expectations for what the story entails. While I don't necessarily think you need to know your genre as you're drafting your book, once you are preparing to publish it, genre becomes something you definitely should think about and try to figure out. Since there are so many genre-related terms used in the publishing industry, today I'm going to set the record straight once and for all and give you a definitive framework for determining your book's genre. If you're anywhere along the book writing or publishing journey, I recommend subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Every week, I either give tactical writing advice like in today's video, or I talk about the publishing industry as that is my professional background, and I'd love to have you join our amazing community. Before we talk more about genre, it would mean a lot to me if you hit that thumbs up button. It just takes 1 second, but really helps out my videos in a big way. Thank you so much. An important note before we get started, I am only talking about fiction genres for this particular video. Though if you want me to dive more into nonfiction, leave me a comment and let me know. The first factor we need to consider when we're thinking about genre is the age category of your book. For novels, there are 3 distinct age categories. The first is middle grade. This category is typically geared toward readers who are between the ages of 8 and 12 or 9 and 14, depending on the source. Essentially, middle grade is targeting readers who are transitioning from elementary into middle school or are in middle school. This category tends to explore themes of friendship, identity, and the challenges of growing up. The tone is often lighthearted and the story is typically accessible. So they may feel a bit less intricate than YA fiction, which is the next category I want to talk about. Young adult novels are typically geared toward readers between the ages of 12 and 18 or 14 to 18, depending on the source. The readers are typically in high school or maybe early college. YA often explores the adolescent experience, talking about questions of identity, love, friendship, future paths, and societal expectations. The tone can range from lighthearted to more serious, and YA may explore more mature themes than middle grade does. If you're struggling to determine if your novel falls into middle grade or YA, I recommend first and foremost looking at the age of your protagonist, because typically the age of the protagonist will align pretty closely with the reader's age that you're targeting. The final age category is adult, and that is geared toward readers 18 plus. In the case of adult fiction, the age of the protagonist doesn't necessarily have to match the age of the readership. That is to say that you could have a protagonist who is younger than 18, but it still be an adult novel, depending on the themes that are explored and the style of prose. Now, within adult fiction, you may have heard the term new adult. This category focuses on readers between the ages of 18 to 30 and explores themes relating to transitioning into adulthood. That said, new adult as a category isn't used consistently throughout the industry, so to play it safe, you can label any book that you think is new adult just as adult, and that's perfectly accurate and fine. The next factor to consider when you're thinking about genre is the setting of your book. This should be pretty quick and easy to answer. Is the story taking place in our present-day society or in a historical period? If it's taking place in the present day, it's contemporary fiction. If it's taking place in a historical period, then it's historical fiction. Now, how long ago should the book be set to be considered historical? Generally, we consider anything that is set more than 50 years into the past as historical. So it being 2024, that would put us at 1976 or earlier for historical fiction. Now, you can have middle grade, YA, and adult novels that are contemporary or historical. These terms help us figure out the age category and the setting of the story. Next, I want to talk about prose style. So within adult fiction, you may have heard the terminology literary fiction, upmarket fiction, and commercial fiction. These terms tend to signal where the story falls in terms of how plot-centered or how character-centered it is, how much focus is on the quality of the writing and the cadence of language versus the events of the story itself. And it tends to give us a sense of what to expect in terms of the style of prose being used to convey the story. The literary agent Carly Waters made a series of extremely helpful infographics that describe the differences between literary, upmarket, and commercial fiction. So looking at literary fiction, this tends to be the award-winning books that you see, winning things like the Pulitzer Prize, the Booker Prize. It's driven by the craft and quality of the language. It blurs or blends genre expectations. The pace may be slower because the emphasis is on the language. It emphasizes originality of thought, and the aim is art. And the novel often has an open ending. Now, in terms of upmarket fiction, these novels tend to be more character-driven. They have universal themes everyone can connect to. The aim is thoughtful discussion among people who read it. It blends the lines of commercial and literary, which I'll get into commercial next. It's appropriate for book club discussion. There is accessible writing. The novel typically has a concise and attention-grabbing hook. These stories feature quality writing that tackles a commercial plot. Finally, let's talk a little bit about commercial fiction. This tends to be plot-driven over character-driven. It includes genres like crime, romance, sci-fi, thriller, etc., which I'm going to get into later on in this video. It reaches a broad audience. The aim is entertainment. The writing is fast-paced. There's a concise hook or problem to solve, like a murder. There's a satisfying experience that readers expect, and the ending closes all the open doors. So when we're talking about literary, upmarket, and commercial fiction, literary fiction tends to stand as a genre in and of itself, while upmarket and commercial fiction tend to have another genre attached to them. Before I get into all those other genres, I wanted to let you know there are so many more resources waiting for you on my newsletter website, chapter-break.com. I'm delivering exclusive interviews with literary agents, including Carly Waters, who I just mentioned earlier, as well as best-selling authors, and I don't want you to miss out on all of their amazing tips and insights. I'm also doing posts with deeper dives into specific editorial issues that I run into as a developmental book editor. Just for signing up to Chapter Break, you'll get my free story self-assessment worksheet, and this is a resource I designed to help you take an objective look at your work in progress and see how you can improve it on the next draft to make it even stronger. The links to download the free story self-assessment and check out Chapter Break are in the description below. Now let's get into a quick summary of the most common fiction genres. If you are writing within middle grade, YA, or upmarket or commercial adult fiction, you would typically classify it under one of these genres. First, we have romance. In romance, the plot centers on a romantic relationship, and it often includes tropes like enemies to lovers, will they, won't they, a love triangle, etc. And it will usually have a happy ending where the couple ends up together. Next is women's fiction. This is a specific adult genre, so there's no such thing as middle grade women's fiction or YA women's fiction. And it'll center on the female experience and typically a female protagonist. The plot might include conflicts related to family, relationships, identity, self-discovery, career, etc. A women's fiction novel may or may not include a romantic plotline, and if it does, it's not the sole focus of the story. Also, women's fiction doesn't necessarily have a happy ending. Next is mystery, which focuses on an investigation or puzzle of some kind. A murder mystery would be the classic example here. And in a mystery, you'll typically have some kind of investigation and an investigatory character, whether that's a detective, a police officer, etc. Then we have thrillers. With thrillers, typically the protagonist is facing a high-stakes, dangerous situation where some kind of threat is closing in on them. It doesn't necessarily have to involve an investigation, but it could. Then there's horror, which is intended to scare and elicit emotional responses in the reader. This often includes supernatural elements like monsters or psychological horrors. Then we have sci-fi. This is when the setting is grounded in some kind of technological advancement. It could have to do with space exploration or AI, for instance. And typically all of the elements explored in the story are either rooted in real scientific principles or are plausible that they could happen in our real world at some point. That brings me to fantasy, which is rooted in a magical world. It'll typically have supernatural or fantastical creatures, and fantasy doesn't adhere to any specific rules of our real world. Now, those are just the main genres of fiction. There are certainly others that I didn't get into, and you can also drill down into subgenres of these genres endlessly, but this video is already getting pretty long, so I wanted to provide an overview here. So let's put it all together and figure out how to present your genre based on all the factors we've just discussed. When describing your genre, you will want to include the age category, the setting, and the relevant genre term. A few genres can stand alone. As I mentioned, literary fiction is one, which already implies that it's adult fiction, but most books should be described via a series of terms, including the category and the genre. So for instance, you could have a YA historical thriller, or you could have an adult contemporary romance, or you could have a middle grade fantasy, or you could have upmarket women's fiction. Women's fiction is another one of those that implies adult. I hope those examples and this framework helped you sort out your book's genre once and for all. And now, let me know in the comments what your book's genre is. I would love to hear what you're working on. If you're interested in learning more about genre, I have another video that talks about the top trending genres for 2024, so definitely check that one out. And before you head out, don't forget your free story self-assessment worksheet waiting for you in the description below, as well as my newsletter link to check out Chapter Break. It would mean a lot to me if you hit that thumbs up button if you liked today's video, and if you hit that subscribe button to join our amazing community. Thank you so much for watching, and happy writing.